Differential diagnosis of a nodular lesion on vocal cords. There are three types of lesions: gray, white, or translucent lesions. Second is hemorrhagic lesion. Third one is yellowish lesion. Now, first category, gray, white, or translucent lesions are true vocal nodules, physiological nodules, prenodular swellings, pseudocyst, polyp, mucus retention cyst with contact lesions or without contact lesion, epidermal cyst plus minus contact lesions, localized edema of vocal fold like ringage edema, lower lip of a sulcus on vocal fold associated with vascular abnormality like ectasias. Second lesion are hemorrhagic lesions, hemorrhagic polyp, ectasia, papilloma, carcinoma, arytenoid granuloma. Last one is yellowish lesion are rheumatoid nodule and epidermoid cyst. So first to discuss is vocal fold polyps. A true vocal polyp is a benign swelling of greater than 3 mm that arises from the free edge of vocal fold. It is usually solitary but can occasionally affect both vocal cords. It is claimed that polyps are the most common structure abnormality that cause hoarseness. They affect men more than women. They are most frequently seen in smokers between the ages of 30 to 50 years of age. In many cases, the exact cause of polyp formation is not known, but most authors agree that phonotrauma is an important etiological factor. Some are heralded by a sudden onset of hoarseness or loss of voice after yelling or shouting, particularly if vocal folds are inflamed from acute infective laryngitis or extraesophageal reflux. A large proportion of patients with vocal fold polyps are also smokers. Cigarette smoking can cause injury to vocal fold leading to hyaline degeneration in polyps. There appears to be disruption to the vascular basement membrane, capillary proliferation, thrombosis, and minute hemorrhages, and ultimately leading to fibrin exudation. Although some polyps have a hemorrhagic appearance, others are more gelatinous and gray. Whether these gelatinous polyps have a different pathogenesis is not known. Occasionally, a sulcus, mucus bridge, or intracaudal cyst is found immediately opposite on the other vocal fold. Alteration in voice quality and voice complaint will depend on effect of mass of the polyp on vocal fold vibration, its effect on vocal fold closure, and secondary compensatory changes. The patient may complain that voice is hoarse, has lowered in pitch, and cut out in the speech, that they have lost part of the range of the voice, that is strain on speaking. So common symptom is the hoarseness followed by changes in voice that may be strain or difficulty in speaking. Very rarely, large polyp can cause difficulty in breathing in episode of choking. Now treatment of these polyps. Some polyps regress spontaneously. Some required microlaryngeal surgery with the help of laser, cold steel, and coblation, with adding the voice therapy. Aim is to restore the smooth edge of the vocal fold so that they can vibrate properly. Second is vocal fold nodule. These are the commonest benign nodular lesion of the vocal fold. Vocal fold nodule are small bilateral swelling less than 3 mm in diameter, as vocal fold polyps are more than 3 mm in diameter. So these nodules are less than 3 mm in diameter. They develop on the free edge of the vocal fold at approximately the mid-membranous portion. In some cases, particularly in singer, they may be smaller, more pointed, and white in color, reflecting a more superficial response to trauma. They may be associated with microwaves at anti-commissure in up to 23% of the cases. They are of variable size and are characterized histologically by thickening of epithelium with a variable degree of underlying inflammation. The exact incidence and prevalence of nodules in the general population is not known, but in various population studies, nodules have been shown to be the cause of persistent hoarseness in under 25% of children and 6% of adults with voice problem. Higher percentages are found in teachers and singers with voice problems. In children, they are more common in boys than the girls, while in adult they are much more commonly found in women, particularly under the age of 30. The etiology of buccal nodule is not known, but traditionally they are thought to be due to voice abuse rather than overuse. Voice abuse is characterized by forced voice production due to strain in the neck and shoulder, producing harsh quality voice. It may be precipitated by talking for prolonged period in loud voice, repeated shouting and singing above one's natural range, occasionally repeated coughing and throat clearing. The vocal folds are thought to impact on each other in such a way that the repeated trauma of mid portion lead to localized swelling and epithelial thickening. Shearing force may be important and whiplash hypothesis may be proposed. Psychological factor, nasal, throat, chest infection, allergies and GERD are playing added role in the etiology of buccal nodules. Nodules disappear spontaneously in the boys with relatively large growth of the larynx in puberty. In girls, they may be persist into early adulthood. The voice quality is often husky, breathy, worsening with voice use and often associated with perilaryngeal discomfort or throat soreness on phonation. The voice may become little deeper in pitch associated with voice breaks, particularly at the higher end of the range of the voice. The vocal folds are usually hourglass in appearance, with often only the nodules making contact at the mid-membranous portion. The mainstay of treatment for persistent vocal nodule is voice therapy with the aim of modification of lifestyle, vocal behavior, providing information and guidance on voice care. Some cases require surgery. If surgery is performed, the aim must be precise excision of the nodule alone with no exposure of damaged underlying ligament. And post-operatively, you should add voice therapy for the prevention of the recurrence and better management of these vocal nodules. Third is pseudocyst. These lesions are transparent sac-like lesion. There is no cyst wall and they are filled with the serous fluid, having appearance similar to that of the blister. The exact etiology is not known, but probably phonotrauma is the main cause. The initial management of pseudocyst is behavioral therapy. Surgical action might be necessary in cases which is not resolved by speech therapy. Fourth lesion is Rinckage edema. Rinckage edema is term used to describe the vocal folds when they become chronically and irreversible swollen whitish jelly-like vocal fold. The other term for this condition are polypoidal vocal cord, polypoidal degeneration, polypoidal hypertrophy, caudal polyposis, polypoid chorditis, chronic edema of vocal folds, pseudomyxoma or pseudomyxomatous laryngitis, and smoker's larynx. So these are the synonyms of this Rinckage edema. It occurs almost exclusively in moderate to heavy smokers, although the exact role of smoking in inducing these changes is not known. Some studies has also suggested that voice strain and GRD may also play a part in its development, although the importance of these factors is not clear. Hypothyroidism may be found as concomitant feature in these cases, but it's not thought to be etiological factor. The epithelium shows non-specific changes and the basement layer is usually thickened. In linkage space, there are lakes of edema, extravasated erythrocytes, and thickening of the walls of the subepithelial vessels are the main characteristic of this linkage edema. It's commonly found in male between 40 to 60 years of age. There is grading of linkage edema by 10 et al. First grade is marginal age edema. Second grade is obvious sessile swelling thrown over vocalis muscle during phonation. Grade 3 is large bag-like swelling filled with fluid. Fourth grading is partially obstructing lesion. Medial border is in contact with each other. So this is grading given by 10 et al. For the linkage edema. The principle of surgery for linkage edema include reduction of bulk of the mucosa, mass per unit length of the vocal fold, obtaining a straight vocal fold edge, avoiding leaving small deposit of myxoedemated material behind, avoiding damage to and exposure of underlying ligament, thereby reducing the chances of scarring and web formation. Reduction glottoplasties can be performed with phonosurgical instrument with KTP laser, CO2 laser or coblation. Care should be taken not to remove excised epithelium and not to overheat the vocal fold ligament as this may cause in permanent scarring and hoarseness. The myxomatous material from the superficial lamina propria is aspirated and can be removed with the forceps or vaporized with the epithelial edges following excision of reductant mucosa if necessary. Good results from unilateral treatment may have been reported, with the patient often electing not to have further surgery on the second side. Post-operative voice therapy may be required in these cases. Fifth lesion is mucus retention cyst. This is arises from the blocked minor salivary gland, possibly secondary to phonotrauma or inflammation. It is lined by cuboidal or low columnar epithelium, can be associated with edema, fibrosis, and linkage space. It is usually unilateral and found on the free edge of vocal fold or can arise in ventricular fold. In the vocal fold, they should be suspected in case of asymmetrical nodular swelling, cyst plus contact nodule. That can be difficult to distinguish from polyps on laryngoscopy. But stroboscopy can help in differential diagnosis. But frequently, a definitive diagnosis can only be made after microlaryngeal surgery or excision of this cyst. Sometimes ventricular cysts need to be differentiated from other tumor of the larynx. They can affect the voice by prolapsing onto the vocal fold, interfering the vibration, causing secondary hyperfunction. Sixth lesion is epidermoid cyst. Are lined by squamous epithelium and are filled with creatine and cholesterol debris. There is often an inflammatory exudate in the surrounding linkage space. It is unclear how these cysts develop, but various theories has been proposed, including metaplasia in long-standing mucus retention cyst, microinclusion of the epithelium from surface trauma, or some defect in epithelialization during developmental, congenital, or dysembryoplastic theory. They are thought to arise as a result of voice abuse or misuse. Large cysts cause a yellow-white bulge within the vocal fold, but smaller or deeper cysts may only be suspected by presence of localized abscess or reduction in mucosal wave on stroboscopy or abnormal blood vessel over the cyst or appearance of unilateral or bilateral chronic laryngitis. The diagnosis only made by microlaryngeal surgery after cordotomy in these type of cases. Seventh lesions are sulcus vocalis, described as localized invagination of the mucosa of varying depth. These may be described as open cyst. The justification of this that they are commonly found in association with epidermoid cyst and sometimes because of trauma of the cyst neck and leading to widening and discharging its content, making the thinning and well-like situation on the vocal fold. Sulcus vocalis is three types. Type 1 is physiological sulcus. This is a superficial longitudinal depression of the epithelium, not beyond the superficial lamina propria. They can only detect by video laryngostroboscopy, and treatment of this should be conservative with speech therapy. Second, type 2A is sulcus burgature. This is more extensive invagination extending into the vocal ligament with some loss of superficial lamina propria. Linkage space exists superolaterally or inframedially to the burgature. They are thought to result from congenital failure of development of linkage space as they are commonly apart at puberty and can be familial in cause. This is the picture of sulcus burgature. There is moderate mucosal abnormality on video laryngostroboscopy and may have moderate dysphonia. Third is type 2B, classical sulcus vocalis or pouch type. This is characterized by focal pit that extend beyond the vocal ligament into thyroerythroid muscle. This is marked loss of superficial lamina propria. Video laryngostroboscopy shows significant mucosal wave abnormality with the loss of vibration pattern, and patient may present with severe dysphonia. Like this is, you can see thyroid node muscle in the depth of this sulcus vocalis. The treatment of both type of sulci is difficult and results are variable. If surgical treatment is required for sulcus vocalis, careful dissection of the pocket of the ligament is required. You prevent the damage of the underlying vocal ligament damage and mucosal damages. Sulcus burgature may be treated by bilateral medialization procedure rather than attempting the resection of burgature, which is technically extremely difficult. Management of sulcus is no single modality is superior to other. Multiple therapy are required like local steroid therapy, surgery. So these sulcus vocalis lesions are difficult to treat. Injection of fat cells and PRP can be tried in these type of the sulcus vocalis lesions. Eighth type is mucosal bridge. They are always found with the presence of sulci and epidermoid cyst. This rare finding is thought to be arise by the rupture through of the deep aspect of both sulci or cyst to form a tube pedicle of the mucosa. So there is mucosal bridge formation over the vocal fold. The treatment of this, you can inject PRP, fat cells and growth factor into it so that this space is filled up. But these type of mucosal bridge is just like sulcus vocalis, difficult to treat. Patient with sulcus vocalis and mucosal bridges present with variable degree of dysphonia and roughness, breathiness depending on the number of lesion, position and depth of the sulcus and bridge. Effect on glottal closure and degree of associated inflammation and muscle tension dysphonia. Patients with sulcus burgature often have a high-pitched monotone, weak, breathy voice and strained voice with the mucosal bridge or sulcus. Ninth lesion is laryngeal hyperkeratosis. Laryngeal keratosis is an inflammatory disease of the epithelium of vocal folds due to chronic hyperplasia and hyperkeratosis of laryngeal mucosa with the resultant hyperkeratosis of vocal fold epithelium. The etiology is non-specific but may have association with smoking, alcohol, and reflex. The predominant symptom is hoarseness of voice. The appearance of white plaques, which can be confluent or patchy type. Often the terminology is interchangeable with the leukoplakia, as leukoplakia are white plaques that cannot be simply scraped off from the vocal fold, and they mostly bleed. A histological diagnosis is mandatory to exclude neoplasia or dysplastic lesions. Laryngeal hyperkeratosis may appear easy to excise, but it's are very prone to reoccurrence. The management is by suspension microlaryngoscopy and surgical excision of these lesions, and biopsy is required to rule out the malignancy. And you can do this MLS with cold steel or laser therapy, and you can use KTP or CO2 lasers depending on the lesion. 10th lesion is Ockermann's tumor or verrucous carcinoma. Ockerman tumor is a slow growing variant of squamous cell carcinoma that does not metastasize. It can cause a diagnostic and treatment challenges for both the histology and surgical excision. Microscopically, it can hard to distinguish from hyperkeratosis. It has a typical exophytic appearance. Although by immunohistochemistry with histopathology, you can diagnose this tumor. Although radical treatment such as laryngectomy is not necessary, a complete endoscopic excision is recommended to prevent recurrence of this type of the lesion. This tumor is less radiosensitive than other extensive tumor like squamous cell carcinoma, and extensive tumor may be treated with radiotherapy instead of radical surgery. 11th lesions are microvascular lesions. Microvascular lesions like varices or capillary ectasias are collection of abnormally large and weakened vessels that are most commonly found on the superior or medial aspect of midmembranous portion of vocal folds. They are most frequently seen in professional vocalists, including singers, are thought to arise secondary to repeated trauma, hormonal variation, and repeated inflammation. They may occasionally be incidental finding but can result in vocal fold hemorrhage, scarring, and polyp formation. The lesion can interfere with the vibratory pattern of vocal folds, causing a lack of clarity of voice, vocal fatigue, or sudden dysphonia associated with hemorrhage. Voice and singing therapy, treatment of associated inflammation, and occasional precise vaporization or point diathermy of feeding vessels may be required in these type of microvascular lesions. Recurrence may occur after treatment. They are prone because of repeated phonotrauma.